There's a lot of dark stuff going on in religion and commerce and banking, and it's just a system that's developed by humans. And I would go a step further and say we live in a system that was designed by a demonic force. I mean, you ask any Catholic or any child, where's God? They point up into the sky. Well, God's up in heaven. And where are angels? Well, angels are up there with God in heaven. Well, I got to tell you, God and the angels are obviously extraterrestrial. The whole entire story of religion is based on extraterrestrial influence driving us and guiding us, and we think we're talking to God. We think we're worshiping God. It's an incredible story of betrayal. The ultimate story about God is that there are extraterrestrials here, and somebody's come here a long time ago and checked us out and thought, you know what, these people are pushovers. They don't know what they're doing, so why don't we run the whole earth for them, and they will work and dig up the gold and make money for us, and they will do all this stuff for us, and when we're through, we'll just bury them. So that's what's going on now. I think that we are being led by extraterrestrial or higher intelligence in the universe. I mean, I don't care if you want to call it God or whatever you wish to call it, but all the ancient religions of the world recognize the fact that there's a higher power in the universe, and there's a higher power in our light. And so that's what we're really up against. And unless people realize it and realize the church today, the whole Christian church, Judaism, and the Muslim religion are all three part and parcel to something very, very dark and something very big and very old. And we need to wake up and find out your life, your money, your banks, your educational institution, everything that you depend on has been manipulated by a higher power. And that's why I love to be able to bring to people the knowledge about how this stuff really works.
Okay, the circumpunct obviously is it's a circle with a dot in the middle. One of the oldest symbols for God ever.
What, was a circle with the dot in the center?
Yeah, and look how strange this is. The circumpunct, if you can envision that a circle being the ovum or the egg of the female, and the dot in the middle being the sperm of the male. In other words, a fertilized egg. Because that's the act of creation, is it not?
That's exactly right.
The concept of fertilization and creation is an act of God all by itself. What's really funny about that circumpunct, or about a fertilized ovum, is that it's the only time ever where the male and the female actually they share the same time and space. It's a singularity. It's the only time ever where a man and a woman share the same space with their DNA.
Yeah.
And so when Heavenly Father, and I'm going to get kind of gross here for a second, comes down and plows the field of Mother Earth.
Well, listen, that's exactly where the concept of God the Father comes from.
You better believe it.
Back into the Babylonian, Sumerian, and the ancient Egyptian systems, especially in India and the Hindu system, one of the names of God in the ancient Hindu was a god named Rain, R-A-I-N, Rain. And he was referred to as God the Father, and he was impregnating Mother Earth with the sacred fluid. And so when he would impregnate Mother Earth with the sacred fluid, which we today call rain, and therefore she gave birth to all kinds of life, because God the Father had impregnated Mother Earth, Mother Nature. That's where the whole idea we get God the Father. I mean, when you get into religion, there's another whole subject we could spend all night on where these ideas have really come from. It's an extraordinary story of how much we don't know about our religions and government and commerce and all the rest of it. But let's get back to what you were saying. I just wanted to make that point that Rome is still alive. We call it America. So, and Washington, D.C. is still the Roman Empire. And I was there in England, to York, England, where you see the statues of Caesar in front of churches and buildings. Well, that was the main headquarters for the Roman Empire when they went into Britannia, was the city of York, England. And so when the Vatican and all of its international banking cartels and all this dark stuff was moving to the New World, they came to the New World, which is us, and they set up their operation, call it New York. And so New York was the empire, and the empire strikes back. Now we're getting into George Lucas and Indiana Jones and all that. It's all one story. It's all very deep, very dark, and very mystical, but fascinating for me. I love this kind of research, but it really does imply something very, very evil is afoot.
It's the greatest story ever told.
Yeah, it's the greatest story ever told. It's not the greatest collection of historical facts. It's a story. And once you understand the Bible is a story, it's the greatest story ever told. Once you begin to see what the story really is and see how it's a metaphor, then it becomes really interesting. Now you're seeing maritime admiralty law, you're seeing all the court system, you're seeing control of labor, like the mafia. The mob is very big on controlling the labor unions, the carpenters union, and the painters union, and the Soviet Union, and now the European Union. And where was the European Union, the paperwork for the European Union signed? Where was the official day and the official signing of all the different governments in Europe come together to sign the European Union if it wasn't in a church, in a Vatican church in Rome? The pictures are there on the web. You can see it everywhere. Yeah, all the big nations sent their presidents and all their officials to Rome, to a very big, beautiful Catholic church, where they, up on the altar, they were sitting there, all the officials setting up the European Union, and they were signing all the papers with the cardinals and all the church officials there. So this whole idea of the European Union is a Vatican fascist Nazi operation, big time, in your face. There's all kinds of proof of that the European Union today is nothing more than a Nazi Vatican operation to reestablish the Holy Roman Empire over the whole earth. But you can't do anything with the whole earth unless you get rid of America first, because it's the biggest guy on the block. And that's why we're in so much trouble. They're trying to destroy the American ideal, the American people, and put us into prisons and put us into stupidity and ignorance so that we don't understand how our money works, how our government works. The whole thing is really a terrible shame.
Vesica Pisces, as in Pisces, type in Washington Monument. What you're going to see is an aerial view of the Vesica Pisces. And the Vesica Pisces is where two circles intersect.
Yep.
And what's funny is that the Washington Monument as a phallic symbol is coming right up through the vagina.
That's it.
And what's crazy...
That's exactly what it is. The Washington Monument is the male erection, and it connects directly to the female ovaries, or the Oval Office.
Yeah, but if you look, this aerial view looking right down on top of it, they also show not only is the Vesica Pisces there, but the circumpunct is there. You're looking right down on top of the Washington Monument, which is the dot in the middle of the circle. So all this stuff is, these guys that were fighting the Catholic Church, I mean Washington and all these other esoteric Freemason guys before they were co-opted by the Jesuits and what have you, they had their own version of reality, which is probably more real, it's more nature-based. But, so, I mean, they put all these symbols out there for us to recognize that this is all about nature. Nature is God. God is part of nature. It has nothing to do with this man-made religion stuff. So that's the war. The war is for your mind. And that's what's funny is, and again, if you look at the Vesica Pisces, you're going to see the Jesus fish in there too.
During the Middle Ages, all over in the Middle Ages, you would always see Jesus in the almond or the female ovaries, and all of that was all part of the art of the church. And my God, that's a whole subject, completely whole different subject when you get into the hidden sex of religion. I mean, I can give you another 3 hours just on that in relation to Judaism and Christianity and Islam. All three are based completely on sex. And of course you can go back to the parent of all three of our major world religions today, Judaism, Christianity, and the Muslim religion. All three are based almost directly on Hindu. The Hindus gave all the symbols, ideas, and concepts to all three religions. But nobody seems to want to talk about that. The Hindu connection to Islam and America, and to Christianity and Judaism. But Judaism itself is just crammed filled with Hindu. All the words and terms and symbols, all of it goes back to the ancient Hindu. When you're looking at money and looking at all the arcane, strange, dark stuff about money and labor and the control of labor and then the control of people's minds with religion, this entire world that we live in is nothing more than a cesspool of ignorance and stupidity, and it's frightening because there's no place for us to come to. There's no place else to go to.